Hey guys, and welcome back to the Natty scene with your host AJ Morris. And today we are very excited to be joined by an awesome guest in the form of Damian Lees. Now, Damian is a WNBF pro natural bodybuilder. He turned pro in 2015, and he's been competing for a long period of time. So he has years of experience, not only as a bodybuilder himself, but also as a coach for his coaching company, coaching both sort of general population clients but also lots of competitive bodybuilders and namely a lot of competitive bodybuilders that are stepping on stage in the UK DFBA, which is a very well known bodybuilding association in the UK, if not one of the best natural federations in the UK for sure. The only way to achieve your WNBF pro status in the UK is through the UK DFBA, which is pretty cool, because the WNBF, if you look at it and you look at the possibilities of competing, and also if you definitely look at the standards of the caliber of athletes at the world finals, I think you could quite easily argue that the WNBF is one of the most competitive natural federations in the world. So to be a pro in that federation is something of a huge feat for sure. So we've got Damian on today, not only to sort of give Damian a bit of a chance to share his story with the audience that follows him, but also obviously my audience and anyone that follows the Natty scene. I very much want to sort of introduce Damian to you guys and have you following him moving forward. So we're going to talk through sort of Damian's journey to the bodybuilding stage, how he turned pro, and then we're also going to catch up a little bit with Damian with regards to his prep this year, because as you can see by the sunken look on Damian's face, he is very much in the midst of his contest prep this year for the UK and also the WNBF Worlds later into the year. So he's got some tough competitions coming up this year for sure, and I'm sure he will be bringing it. So we'll catch up with his prep, how it's gone, and any sort of differences that have changed throughout the years with regards to his preparation. So Damian, thank you very much for coming on. How are you today, and how are things going sort of really recently with things?
Yeah, I'm great. Thanks, AJ. Thanks very much, firstly, for having me on today. It's an honour to be on there, and I'm just glad to talk bodybuilding, to talk shop, really.
Yeah.
So things are going well.
Good.
Yeah, can't complain, really.
Wicked. Awesome stuff. So Damian, first things first, I know your story is very long and in depth, and we've got lots of things to talk about. So I think for the listeners, they'll be very much interested into sort of how you found the sport of bodybuilding. So sort of talk us through your younger years and how you essentially found the gym, and then obviously did your first show and found bodybuilding.
Sure, yeah. Well, I started off. I was introduced to a gym first of all when I was around about 15 years old. My stepdad at the time, he just basically took me to a local gym once a week, and we just sort of like tinkered on a full body workout. So we just really messed around on the equipment, and but as soon as I stepped in the gym, it was kind of like, I love the atmosphere. I mean, back in those days, it was like an old school type of gyms, you know. They were the norm back in those days. And I decided then from there just to join up a local gym. There were basically two local gyms at the time called Silver's Gym on Silver Street and Derby's on Derby Street. And both those gyms, they weren't exactly a rivalry, but they were both bodybuilders who were competing out of both gyms basically, and they were going from sort of like teenagers right up to masters from there. And as soon as I stepped foot in the gym, it was like these one was a basement gym and the other one was the opposite, where you had to walk up the steps like a mill type of gym. And as soon as you walked in there, you could just sense the atmosphere. You could hear the clanging of the iron, all the metal plates and things like that. And the guys were there training the vests, and up on the wall there was like photographs of guys competing, all the local guys, There was like trophy cabinets, everything. It was just so inspiring just to walk in there, even not being a bodybuilder sort of thing.
Hmm.
And back in those days as well, it was like Arnold Schwarzenegger and Sylvester Stallone sort of like were the main characters in the action movies. And I
Yeah.
always liked their physiques and aspired to look like them. And I thought, right, well, I better make a start sort of thing doing it.
Sure.
So basically, I started training at both gyms pretty much. Just tinkering around. I didn't know what I was doing whatsoever. I didn't have a physique or anything like that. And just briefly stepping back, I was always played sports at school, sort of like football and basketball. I was in the basketball team, football team, things like that, swimming team. But I never actually had a physique really. I wasn't fat, but I wasn't sort of like lean neither with a six pack or anything like that.
Did you enjoy team sports, Damien, or did you find it quite annoying to be as part of a team? Did you ever get annoyed with your teammates and think like, why aren't you working as hard as me type thing?
Yeah, yeah.
Me too.
I, 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 I kind of like I enjoyed it. So from joining the gym, basically, then I could just choose my own path, sort of thing. And when I joined, it was last in school. And I actually quit the basketball team because I enjoyed the weight training so much. And my games teacher at the time, he just couldn't comprehend what I was doing, and he was like, "Why are you quitting?" and things like that. Anyway, just come back to the gym. I saw a poster for a local show called the Mr. Berry Show,
Yeah.
and there was an under-18 category there. And I only had 1-2 months training under my belt at the time when I saw the poster, and I said to myself, right, I fancy competing in that. Because at the time, in the local town of Bury, I kind of knew a lot of people and lads around my age and things like that. And I thought to myself, as an under-18, there can't be that many guys who've got good physiques at that age, sort of thing. So I thought, yeah, stuff it, why not? Let's do it. So I approached the gym owner, Rob Worthington, who's a previous Mr. Universe, British champion. He's won multiple titles over the years. And I thought he was going to laugh at me, basically, when I approached him. But he says, no, just let me help you, let me prep you.
Sure.
So he said, well, we'll take a look at your physique and I'll show you all the poses and things like that. So we got in the studio. He showed me how to pose. And then he gave me this diet, and he printed off this diet for me. And it was basically the bland tuna, cottage cheese, rice, the usual bodybuilding meals. And I looked at it and I thought, God, I can't follow this. I ended up following it. I think it was for around about a week. I got my mum to buy all the food in and things like that. I started going on a sunbed and that. And after 1 week, I thought, stuff this. I'm going to go back to my mum's cooking. So I didn't really diet for the contest at all. But I was taught how to train hard from an early age from Rob.
Okay.
At the time, Rob's methods, now being experienced, I'll go against that now, but it was sort of like tons of forced reps, really annihilating the muscle, tons of volume, and I couldn't walk, I couldn't put my arms back or anything like that for a good few weeks. And a few of the older guys at the gym, they were sort of like having a laugh at me, sort of thing. But they sort of like welcomed me into the group, sort of thing. And
taught you the work ethic, I suppose.
They did really, yeah. And even though I didn't have a physique at the time, and all them guys did, they saw the work I put in, and they sort of like just welcomed me, really.
Absolutely.
So that's when I decided to enter my first bodybuilding show, which was in 1992, in September, I think it was. Yes, it was the end of August, because I remember it was the weekend before going back to my last year of high school.
Yeah, okay.
I remember that well. So then I entered the show. I literally I held at a local nightclub show. I started registering, everything like that. Got backstage, and then I saw these guys pumping up, and I thought, God, they got really, really good physiques. And I looked at them, I thought, they're around about my age as well, and I just couldn't believe it. I thought, they can't look like that at my age, you know what I mean? And there was like a little film crew as well who was videoing it, and they said, oh, can we interview, and things like that. I was like really nervous. I was really shy back then. I'm still quite introverted, but back then I was quite shy.
Yeah.
So I was interviewed. I was like, "Oh yeah, I've been training for a few months, and I'm only 15, and this and that sort of thing, you know."
Mm.
So anyway, I ended up competing against I think there was four other guys, and I came dead last
Okay.
in the contest. But from there, I absolutely loved it. I got a buzz from the contest. I got to know a few of the guys who was competing in my class as well.
Nice.
Uh, Guy who won the class is an under 18. The previous year, he actually came dead last as well because he was so out of shape. But this time he dieted properly, he got shredded, won the class quite convincingly, and he later, years later, became Mr. I think he won the Mr. UK and a Mr. Universe, and
Wow.
as he's retired from competing now, but I'm still friends with him.
Amazing.
It is, yeah, yeah. So we go back a long way.
Mm.
And then anyway, from there, I just sort of like I thought, right, I need to start sort of like eating a little bit better now. And I came back the year after, and I got third, and I just improved my physique a lot more.
Sure.
And from then, around that time, there was the old, you probably won't remember, it's before your time, but it was Latham's Gym used to put on loads of shows around the country,
Okay.
and they were like sort of like grassroots bodybuilding, and they had a 14 to 16-year-old class as well. So I thought, right, let's enter them. So I entered like circuits of shows and things like that. Again, I didn't sort of like I didn't start winning shows or doing that well because I still didn't have the muscle or sort of like got the diet bang on because I just couldn't diet strict enough really. I had too much of a sweet tooth.
Okay.
But yeah, back then, I mean, it was really, really. I wouldn't say maybe the best days, sort of like getting into the sport, and everything was just such a buzz, and there was no internet back then, and it was just a great era to sort of like get into bodybuilding, really. And not many people know this, but that's where I met Lee Kemp.
Oh
We
wow.
was both. It was at a show in Pudsey,
Okay.
and we was both in the 14, 16-year-old class. There was about 10 guys in our lineup. We couldn't believe it, and I think I ended up placing fifth, and then Lee came about seventh or eighth,
Okay.
and that's where me and Lee first met as well. And
Wow.
yeah, so yeah, it's
So you go back a long way with Lee, yeah?
a long time. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
And obviously for the listeners, Lee is the guy that runs the UK DFBA, correct? With
That's
Amy, of
right.
course.
Yeah,
Yeah.
of course. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, I go back a long way. So then fast forward to sort of like a few years on,
Yeah.
I sort of like just started getting more serious with the diet and the training, and then I won a couple of shows, nothing major, but I still couldn't get my diet right. I mean,
Okay.
I used to have full cheat days from sort of like 1 minute past midnight to straight away to sort of like just before midnight, and
Were you
I,
having
I,
help at this point with anyone? Like, was anyone helping with your diet, or
yeah.
where did you like it, apart from obviously any sort of coaches that you had?
Mhm.
Where could you learn from at this point in time? Like, were there forums that you were reading? Were there magazines? Like, could you learn anything? Because obviously nowadays, you can literally pick up your phone, scroll through Facebook, and probably learn something about diet and
Yeah,
training like straight away. It's amazing,
exactly. Yeah, yeah,
and the advancement of education is probably huge, right? So,
exactly.
so,
Yeah,
so,
yeah.
so where did you learn anything from anywhere, or was it more so just sort of in the gyms?
In the gyms, yeah.
Yeah,
Like I said, my mentor at the time was Rob Worthington.
yeah.
Some of it back then was sort of like a bit of bro science, as you call it now.
Okay.
And I mean, Rob as well. When he looked at my physique, he was like pinching my skin. He was like, "Are you sure you're not cheating on your diet?" Sort of thing. And I was like, "No, no, no, I've not had anything." And then
Holding a
my
bit of
friends were
water.
trying to help me out. And I remember one day actually. I could go on forever about stories from the past and everything, but one of my training partners actually rang me up the following day, and he said you've been spotted yesterday. I said, what do you mean? He says you've someone told me that you was in McDonald's for lunch, and then he said, and what about in Mr. Pizza in the evening? So I went mad at him then. I was, back then I was sort of like 20 years old. I was sort of like, short fuse and things like that. And
Sure.
I said, right, I said, have you got your spies on me sort of thing, And it was just because it was a local town of Bury. I was literally, and I had to hold my hands up and said, yeah, well, I had McDonald's, and then at night I'd missed the full pizza and things like that. So I just couldn't really I just had too much of a sweet tooth and just couldn't stick to a diet properly for
Couldn't
sort of like
adhere.
7 days a week. Yeah.
Yeah.
Back then as well, it was literally like two chicken breasts with a big serving of rice each meal or potato. So you weren't really counting calories properly or anything like that. You were just literally eating clean,
Yes. Yeah.
assuming you'll sort of like get ripped from that and you
Like
just
on
eat
or
less.
off.
Exactly, yeah.
Yeah.
So I still lost body fat, but I just didn't get in the condition I needed to really
Okay.
to succeed and to do well. But the training side, I think I got it spot on, and I could always train hard enough. It was just a case of getting the nutrition together,
Yeah.
really.
So
Um,
fast forwarding a bit, Damien. Like when was it that the switch was flicked and you realized suddenly, okay, this is something that is going to take my physique to the next level in terms of nutrition?
yeah.
What year was that, and when did you really come back to the stage and really have what you would deem as a successful bodybuilding prep?
Sure. I think just before I took a long layoff, it was 1999, where I literally came back from a lad's holiday in Benidorm, and I was 6 weeks out from a contest, a junior contest. And then it was Lee Kemp who actually prepped me, and I went down
Oh wow.
to I think I went down to around about 60 grams of carbs a day. I had to lose quite a bit of weight and around about an hour and a half cardio a day. So I had quite a bit to lose in the last 6 weeks.
Oof.
But I just turned the switch on really, and that's when I kind of, to be honest, I didn't get shredded, but I got in the best condition around at that time, which I could have done really. I mean, I'm probably in better condition now than I was on stage back then.
Mm. And
But
on more food probably.
yeah, exactly. Yeah, a lot more food as well. So it was then kind of like thought, right, yeah, I can kind of 90% kind of commit now, sort of thing.
Sure. Okay.
And then what happened then is after I competed, I mean, I won the junior Mr. Wales, but there was only two in the lineup.
Okay. Okay.
So the other guy he was quite bigger than me, but he didn't have my condition.
Okay.
And then from there, I won. I went. Sorry, I didn't win. I got invited to the Worlds because at the time there was a guy called Dennis Stannard, I think he's called, who has actually competed on stage at the NABA Universe and things like that in the past. And I think he was friends with Arnold and Bill Pearl and things like that
Uh-huh.
back in the old days. And he said, "I want to invite you to the World Championships." And then when I got there, we just like, I think there was about 12 in my lineup, and the guys were monsters. And I think I maybe placed about 10th, something like that. I might have beat two guys who were smoother than me, but they were monsters.
Yeah.
But then following from there, I think because I was so obsessed with the bodybuilding from a young age, I think I just grew out of it at the time. I kind of like fell out of love with the whole sport really, to a point where I just kind of like just quit bodybuilding completely.
Wow.
I still kind of train with the weights. I took up Thai boxing for quite a number of years. So actually, I had from I think year 2000 up until 2007 off completely from bodybuilding. So it was only in 2007, just getting back to your question, where that was where everything came together, where I finally nailed my condition in 2007, and that was for the BNBF Northern Show. Sorry,
Did you
2009 it was.
did you do your diet for that one, or did you have some help for that?
I had a prep coach.
Okay.
Basically, in 2007, I just went to watch a friend, Christian Bulger, do the BNBF novice category.
Okay.
And as soon as I watched the show, that was it. It was just light bulb went off again. I was like, wow, what have I missed, sort of thing. And it just gave me incentive to get back into bodybuilding.
Yeah.
So then I gave myself sort of like a year and a half, basically, to have a really good off season,
Yeah.
get my eating right, get all my training back on again, quit the Thai boxing, quit all the fluff stuff, the fitness stuff and everything like that, and just concentrate purely on the bodybuilding.
Hmm.
And then back in 2009, I think I was 31, 32 at the time. And then I approached Paul Booth in Evolution Gym. He owned the gym with John Hodson at the time.
Okay.
And I said, will you prep me? So he prepped me. We did, I think it was an 18-week prep. And then it was only up until we got to about 6 or 7 weeks out where I had to lose, I think it was about 16 pounds, 17 pounds. And at the time as well, I remember attending one of the local BNBF clubs. And I remember seeing the other guys as well who was in my category. and they were all in really good shape. And then I was ready to quit. I came
Yeah.
home. I said to me, my now wife, girlfriend at the time, I said, they're all in good shape. I said, I'm not sure if I can make it in time, sort of thing. And I remember saying, right, I think I have to really sort of like think about this, whether I want to compete again, really.
Yeah.
Uh, so I sort of like got my ass in gear. I spoke to Paul. He changed my diet around for the final 6 weeks, and I managed to drop about 16 pounds. It would have been, I think. I was losing like about £3 a week, something like that.
Yeah.
But it did the trick because I got really shredded, but I was flat as a pancake. I went down to, again, about 50 grams of carbs, 2 hours of cardio a day on the
Wow.
white fish, veg. I
Oh.
mean, no disrespect to Paul at all, because at the time where I was, we needed to do more. What we needed to do what needed to be done, really.
Mm.
Uh, but then when I got to the venue and we were getting backstage, there was 16 in my class at the novices.
Crazy.
'Cause back then there was weight categories
Yeah.
for novice. And I remember sort of like thinking, wow, these guys are all bigger than me, sort of thing. But once we started pumping up, and I saw how smooth some of the guys were as well, and I thought, actually, I might be in the mix here. So first call out came, I was right in the centre. So the usual scenario, you think, actually, oh, this is giving me good confidence, this.
Yeah.
So fast forward to the night show and everything like that, and I ended up winning the class and getting a British invite, and then actually getting second at the British final that year as well. So then that was when, right, yeah, sort of like
Unreal.
I've actually achieved more than I expected to at the time, because I just wanted to get back on stage, just see what kind of shape I was capable of getting in, and maybe see if I can do all right. I
Yeah.
had no sort of like aspirations of winning UK titles, turning pro, or going to the world, anything like that. It was just sort of like novice level, just see how I can get on with it, really. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, listening to some of the diets you've done, Damien, like, would you say that the previous diets and the way that you've had to really, really push in some phases, would you say that that's built upon some sort of mental fortitude that now, when you're in those last phases of prep and you look at your calories and you're like, well, they're actually still higher than I was when I was here, or I'm still
Yeah.
doing less expenditure than I was here? Do you think that that really, really helped you in terms of opening up your eyes to what you can actually push your body to be able to do? And
Yeah.
do you think that that's probably helped you get into the caliber of condition required for that sort of pro card?
I think so. Yeah, yeah, definitely. I think at the time, going sort of like that deep in prep mentally prepares you for it. And I remember being on that low carb, sort of like feeling like lightheaded, the usual feeling from
Yeah,
low carbs, which wasn't optimum at all at the time, but it did the trick on getting the condition. Just without the fullness, really, sort of thing. And
mm,
for that level at the time, it was enough for me to do well in competition. But then, as you know, when you sort of like move up your categories, you got to bring more. Then you got to bring more muscle, more fullness, things
yeah,
like that, really. But I think in comparison now, I mean, this prep, what I'm doing now, I mean, it's going to get harder. It's going to get more deeper. I'm be getting to that dark place, so to speak, when I get closer. But it's an absolute doddle compared to back in 2009.
yeah,
So yeah,
yeah,
definitely
absolutely.
less extreme. Yeah,
Man, crazy, 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 crazy. I think that sort of proves that, like, when you go through harder times, for me, I think, whilst luckily throughout my preps I've been in sort of this, luckily in an educated environment to the point where most of my preps have been what you look upon as sustainable, or at least sustainable from a mental aspect. At least you can push through it and still come out the other end without being absolutely in the gutters, damaged, with regards to metabolism, etc. So I feel like the majority of my mental fortitude was actually built last year in my off season, when I got a few injuries that literally like put me out of sessions for like weeks. I had to take like weeks and weeks and weeks off the gym, and that was more painful for me to actually go through than any sort of real like diet. Like, so I love training so much that not being able to train and being unsure as to what my injury was and how to deal with it, that was harder for me to go through than just a diet. Like, every time I wake up at the moment, I'm like, oh, at least I can train, and at least
yeah,
I'm
yeah,
healthy. You know, like not being healthy for me is like the thing that builds mental fortitude, or at least not being able to train, because I could just go insane. And I'm sure so many bodybuilders can relate to that when you're told not to train by your doctor who knows exactly what's wrong with you. You know, that's horrible. So yeah, I think mental fortitude is a big thing that's like it's overlooked in bodybuilding. Like I think the people who get into the best condition, it's more so you get to a point in prep where you, or at least for me, it's like the hunger doesn't really bother you that much anymore. It's you just sort of get used to the hunger. It's more it's more so like just you want a little bit more energy, and if you can mentally battle through the lack of energy and the fatigue, like you can get to places where other people will back out. So yeah, really interesting that. Now, moving a little bit more recent, so you won your pro card in 2015, and that was obviously one of the biggest achievements probably as of late in your career in natural bodybuilding. So what did that prep look like comparative to the ones that you'd done in the past, and was there anything that really sort of that you were in 2015 in that year? Because I know that obviously knowing you and having previous chats that you'd come pretty close in the past. So what was it that sort of happened in 2015 where all the stars aligned and you really got to obviously achieve that goal?
Yep. Well, in previous years, I competed 2013, 2014, and then 2015. Because in 2013, when I won the UK, I was then invited to the Worlds,
Yes.
And then it was that was my first attempt really. But at the time, it was I was just happy to be there and maybe crack the top five. And then when I ended up getting second and a close second to the eventual winner. I thought actually, you know, I'm sort of maybe I'm better than I think I am here for that class.
Bit of a confidence booster.
It was, yeah, definitely. And if I would have got sort of like fourth or fifth, I think I would have took a year out and then come back, you know, the following year. But because I got so close, I thought, well, I'm getting older now. So, you know, a lot of these guys coming up through the ranks, they're all in their 20s and that, and I'm sort of like pushing 40. So I thought, right, well, let's have another crack the following year. And the following year I got second again. And from the feedback I got, it sort of like the guy who I beat the previous year then won the class. And the feedback is that a lot of people, because he looked worse that year, I should have won it. But at the end of the day, I mean, it's a judge's opinion, and you know, I think there was about 12 in the lineup, and you know, he beat me, simple as that. So then I had to make a decision then whether to sort of like think, stuff it, you know, I've had enough of it now, sort of thing. I don't want to put myself through another prep, or shall I come back again and for the third time just to try and win the class? Because I think for me, it wasn't necessarily a world title, but it was actually getting the pro card, which was sort of like, for me, a massive, massive achievement sort of thing. Because, I mean, in America, when you're in America, it's easy to get a pro card, whereas when you're in the UK, first of all, you've got to win the UK title, get on the team.
Yeah.
It is. It's more difficult. Get on the team, and then to get your pro card, you've got to win your class at the Worlds. Plus, there've got to be so many people in the class as well. So I thought. So my off season was relatively short, having competed 3 years on the trot. So I didn't have as much body fat to lose in comparison with taking a full year off. But my prep was still about I think it was about 4.5 months before the UK, because I wanted to win the UK title as well for the third time. So in 2015, I think I did 4.5 month prep, maybe 5 months. And then it ended up being a 6-month prep, just a bit longer for the Worlds. So I think getting in good condition for the UK, but not razor sharp, because I know my quads and glutes were a little bit smooth for that show. But I think the extra dieting time, I just started getting even grainier and harder for the extra dieting.
Did your scale weight change much when you were getting sort of harder and grainier? Because like I've seen this in a few competitors where scale weight doesn't seem to actually change, but just being in what you would call a net deficit for that little bit more time, the physique changes. But no, like hardly any scale weight drops. Like I don't know how
Yeah.
that's explainable, but it happens, right?
Yeah, absolutely. It changed. I think it literally changed around about £2. So I think the lowest I got to was around about 162, 163 pounds, which is very light.
Yeah, that
That
is
was my
light.
lowest, and that was like weight first thing in the morning without water,
Of
etc.
course.
And then for the UK, I dehydrated just to make the lightweight class really, which was under 75 kilos,
Okay.
165 pound. So yeah, it was really weird because. I started getting that really hard graininess in the glutes and the quads in particular, and everywhere else, just from that extra, couple of pounds, and that was it. And that extra 6 week of dieting time, really weird. And I remember after the UK show, I even took the Monday off the diet completely, and I sort of like went out and had about 3 or 4 relaxed meals of whatever I wanted, and it was back on the diet. And even
Mr. Pizza.
yeah, my standards have risen. It's like more upscale than Mr. Pizza Kebab House. Yeah, having a day off the diet and then refreshed mentally for the Worlds. And then by weekend, I was back to condition from the UK, and I just got harder and harder and harder. Prep was still really tough towards the end because I remember going as low as 150 carbs per day, raising my fat up, but my cardio dropped down a lot as well. I was only doing, I think, 2 or 3 hit sessions and then a couple of steady state tops. I think it might have been 1 or 2 steady state. Because I was already in shape, it was a case of muscle retention, really.
Are you a fan of HIT? Have you used HIT in most of your preps?
Not all of them, no. I'm
Okay.
using it on this prep and I've used it on the last one. I think if you use it quite sparingly, it's okay. But hit, if you're doing it properly, it does really wipe you out.
Taps into your recovery, right?
It does, yeah,
Yeah,
absolutely. So it's a fine line with hit, in my opinion. So
agreed.
at the moment, I'm only doing 2 hit sessions a week, but that may reduce down as I get a bit closer,
Yeah,
really.
okay, that makes sense.
Yep. So regards to that prep back then, I mean, it was still a really tough prep, but I think it was just the length of time on the diet, really, just to get that pro level conditioning, really,
Mm,
which did the trick, I
yeah,
think. Yeah.
absolutely. And then obviously, how was that feeling like when you actually achieved obviously the pro card status? How did you feel? And did I mean, I tend to, after a show, obviously you put so much effort and time into it for one day, and then when you actually achieve it, sometimes I don't know. Sometimes I get out of shows where I've come second or third and had like come short on the goal of winning, and
Mhm.
I've felt more motivated after that, and I felt
Right.
more fired up.
Sure.
How did you feel after winning? Obviously, you have this elation, and then
Yeah.
did you feel like a maybe like a slight drop in adrenaline and like a slight slump, or were you just on this huge high?
I was absolutely buzzing, to be
Yeah,
honest with you. I mean,
I
when
bet.
they announced after, so at the time, I think it was it was a pre-judging and night show combined. So we actually got the show on the Friday night.
Okay.
And I remember sort of like going through the judge and then going backstage to get ready to do routines. And then, I remember Lee Kemp saying to me, he said, I think you've got this now. He says, your condition just standing out. And he
Okay.
said, but let's not get our hopes up, sort of thing. And then when they announced the final placings, and then as soon as they announced second place, which was Ken Buser from Switzerland, and I was like, it was kind of like, I think I was thinking to myself before they announced second, oh, is it going to? Am I going to be second again, sort of thing? But as soon as they announced me the winner, that was like, wow, it was amazing.
Yeah.
I think what topped it off as well, my mum and dad were there at the show as well in
Oh,
America. It was in
awesome.
Atlantic City. My wife was there, a couple of my friends, my clients as well. So and obviously Team UK and everyone, and it was just like a really good, brilliant family atmosphere. It was just like a feeling of pure elation, really. And then after that, I went into the overall, and then I got second in the overall to Nigel St. Louis. So he ended up winning the overall. But because I got second, they still awarded me the pro card because what was happening in my class, they were saying that you have to play second in the overall now. The top
Oh
two get the
God,
pro cards,
Christ.
unless there's like a massive lineup. So I was like, "Oh right, so I've won my class, but I'm not a pro yet." Then, uh,
Fuck. Oh my God.
so I was like, I said, well, I'll take it as I'm in my best shape anyway. Who gives a shit, sort of thing.
Yeah.
And I got second in the overall, so it was like, right, you got your pro card now. So I
God.
was like, right, brilliant. And then the following day, I competed with the pros, which was awesome. It was just unbelievable, and the standard when you get backstage, it's just you see all the pros getting ready, and there was Cleveland Thomas pumping up, and Brian Whitaker, Siobhan Cunningham. Um, it was just amazing just to see
How
these
does
guys up close.
how does Brian look up close?
Believe it or not, he doesn't look that big. I mean, I'm friends with Brian, and so we had a good chat and everything like that. And you can see his conditioning through, but it's only when he's under them lights where he's like, wow, he just
It's
transforms.
an illusion, right?
It is really. I mean, Cleveland Thomas, I felt skinny stood next to him. Speaking to Cleveland, he gave me a compliment. He said I was shredded and things like that. But I was just looking at the size of him because what happened, what I thought I would have been in the lightweight pros.
Okay.
Literally, there's a £2 cut off because what they do is they weigh all the pros and then they split into three weight classes.
Ah.
So I got moved up to the middleweight where I was giving away about, I think it was about up to £18
Oh Jesus, right.
weight. Siobhan actually got pushed to the heavyweight class, and he was literally a pound or two above the middleweight limit. So
Still
I was
got it though,
like,
didn't he? I think that year, didn't he?
yeah, he still won,
Yes,
yeah.
yeah,
So
yeah.
it was him, Cleveland, and Brian in the overall.
Overall, yeah.
But just to get on that stage and sort of like compete with the pros. I mean, I think there was 13 or 14 middleweights, and I ended up placing eighth. So I was around about mid range, which I was happy with. And the first call outs, I remember in the cemetery round, I was in the top five towards the centre because the way they do it at the Worlds in WNBF, they keep you all on one line, but then they juggle around. So the closer you are to the centre, usually the higher you're sort of like up there with the placing. So I was towards the centre to begin with, and then I was sort of like mid range to sort of like, but I wasn't at the end. So I thought actually I'm kind of doing all right here. I'm sort of
Yeah.
like placing mid range, and I did do. And then they announced on the board later on who placed the top five, and my number wasn't up, but I didn't expect it to be honest with you. But I got eighth, and I was pleased with that. I was just happy to just be a WNBF pro now, and sort of like I achieved me sort of like my goal at the time, really.
Oh, yeah. No, amazing. No, that was such a huge achievement. And like you said, obviously, with the UK DFBA being such a cool federation and taking a lovely team of individuals out there, like you feel like a family, like you feel like when you achieve. And I remember watching some clips because obviously I had a client in the form of Marcus out there in
Yeah,
the junior
Marcus. Yeah, yeah.
category, and I just remember seeing clips that he was sending me, and everyone was shouting Team UK, and like you had all this support. So I can imagine that was just such an awesome experience. So
Yeah.
moving into this year, and obviously coming back onto the stage and prepping this year. Just to give us a general roundup, sort of when did you start your prep? How sort of fluid has it gone so far? Have you encountered any issues? And yeah, just give us sort of a brief roundup as to how prep is going so far.
Sure, yeah. Well, I started prep literally in January, so it's been a really, really long prep.
Wow. Okay.
But I was quite heavy. I was 14 stone 12, which is what 200 and God, I was about 208 pounds, something like that.
Is that the heaviest you've got quite recently?
Yeah, recently, yeah, because
Wow.
I've had last year off as well, off season. So the longer off season I have, it's easy for me to put weight on.
Yeah, of course.
But the shape I was in, I mean, I wasn't, I was full bulk sort of thing, but I wasn't fat.
Okay.
And I was lifting some good numbers the weights wise. So I was like, I was looking forward to just shedding the fat and just see what would be revealed sort of thing.
Yeah.
'Cause it's the first time for years I've had a full over a year off season sort of thing. So I started dieting in January, just basically just cutting calories a little bit, no cardio or anything like that, and then just slowly coming down in body weight really.
Do you have a
Uh,
preference? Are you like a higher carb guy? Do you prefer to keep carbs high, fat lower? What's your sort of general preference to nutrition as you're coming down in body weight?
yep. Preference carbs as high as possible, fat low, and protein moderate to high really. So I started off, my diet was around about 3,200 calories. So I was on
Okay.
about 450 carbs, something like that,
Yeah, yeah,
per
yeah.
day. And then all I did is just cut back a little bit. on the carbs, a little bit on the fat intake, because my fat intake was around about 80, 90 grams.
Yeah,
So that
yeah,
was just slowly reduced down. I had things like off-track meals. You obviously could call it cheat meal
yeah, yeah.
for my birthday because it was my 40th in February. So I thought, right, well, I'm not going to be dieting on my 40th. So I had a couple of drinks. So I've had plenty of off meals as well. But the closer I get to the show, then it gets a bit more tighter,
Of course.
where I turn it more into sort of like cleaner foods. It's the same kind of foods, but higher carb days, really.
Yes.
So at the moment, I'm on 2,250 calories. So I've come down in calories quite a bit. I'm on carbs are relatively high for me personally. I'm on about 280 grams of carbs a day now, 210 protein, and about 45 fat.
Yeah.
Which I'm in a really good position at the moment because I'm only, I would say maybe at a guess about £6 off contest shape.
It's good.
But I'm in a better position than I was last time. I'm heavier, and I think I'm a bit more improved and bigger as well. But until I'm right down to the graininess and the condition, that's when I'll truly know my improvements really. But from a few of my shots, what I've sort of like looked on from progress, I think I'm bigger this time,
Yeah.
which I need to be really at pro level.
And
So.
do you find, obviously, with these last £6 that have got to come off, do you find usually you have to dig quite low in terms of calorie intake and expenditure to get those last bits off before you can start maybe slowly incrementing up your food again? Or, do you
Yeah.
think that you'll be able to get there on decent food? Like, how does the last stages sort of look for you?
Well, the last few weeks, since I made the change to that, I've been losing between pound and a half a week anyway. So
Pretty
as far as
consistent.
I'm concerned, if I can keep losing that little bit and getting that little bit sharper, then I probably won't change anything. But
Yeah.
it's always that deadline as well, though. You're looking at, I mean, if I had 16 weeks left, I'll be throwing in lots of refeeds and things like that, or raising my calories up a little bit and
Of
just
course.
just working at a snail's pace really. But when you look at, because it's coming up to 7 weeks before the UK Pro now, and then it's 11 weeks before the Worlds, I'm thinking, right, okay, it's TikTok now. I need to do enough and progress enough each week to get that nearly condition, because
Yes.
you could easily sort of like think, right, I'll come in bigger, but you're lacking that sharpness. It's sort of like, I know the class I'm going into at the UK Pro, I think the weight cutoff is 165. What I think it's £170, which is 12 stone 2. I think it is.
Okay.
So I've got sort of like a £5 leeway in weight compared to the last time I competed, because last time I competed it was like £165 was the weight limit for
I
the
see. I
amateurs.
see.
So this time I think I'm going to be a little bit bigger, hopefully, but I just need to get that condition really.
Yeah, absolutely. So, final thing on sort of diet wise, how do you tend to approach refeeds, Damien? Do you sort of auto regulate these? Are these things that you'll only throw in when you need it? Like, for example, if your weight drops significantly, or you have a few training sessions which aren't up to the caliber that you think was good enough? Is that how you tend to sort of approach refeeds?
Yeah, it's a combination of things really. Like you say, it's training and energy levels
Okay.
as well in the gym, because obviously performance is so important when you're in the gym, because if you can keep your performance up and keep up the weights as much as possible, then chances are you've got a good chance of retaining the muscle as well.
Yeah.
Um, Also with the refeeds, rather than going really super high carb in the past few weeks, instead I just did a 3,000 calorie refeed. So them
Okay.
calories could be from anywhere really.
Nice.
So what I've done in the past is I've had, say, a slice of cheesecake which is higher fat. I've had sort of like a homemade burger with chips sort of
Yeah.
thing. So it's naturally raised my carbs, but it's basically a higher carb and higher fat as well.
How do you find
Um,
those have worked? Do you sort of like feel any better off of them psychologically, or is it sort of quite nice to see how your physique looks when you chuck in these foods that essentially are very much like not part of your daily structure? Do you find that creates a look to your physique that might be something you're like, oh, okay, like this, I respond well to this food. I might use it in a show day or a peak week or something like that. Do you find that it gives you some good data?
Yeah, it does. Yeah, I mean, I'm not sure whether or not it's something I'm going to try when I get close to the show or not. But
Bit risky.
Yeah, exactly. And it's been a nice mental break as well because me and my wife have got a 5 month old baby now, Max.
Oh,
So
lovely.
it's sort of like it's just nice to have that break where you're sort of like either going out for a meal or just sort of like doing something in the house and cooking something together.
There you go.
So it's
Yeah.
just that one meal. It's nice mental break, really. Regards to the way I look from the meal afterwards or from raising my calories, I think the following day I've better pumps in the gym
Okay.
from training, and I'm a little bit fuller. Condition doesn't seem to be affected too much, really, and I've still been losing off it as well,
Great.
which is good. But I think going forward, as I get closer, I think psychologically, I think I'd be better off sticking to the same foods I've been dieting on
Structure.
during the week. Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
Yeah.
And maybe perhaps keeping the fat low but pushing the carbs up as high as
Yeah.
possible instead, really,
Yeah.
instead of using things like cheesecake and that.
Mm.
Because when you get closer as well, it's food for fuel, really, rather than sort of like taste. In my
Yeah.
opinion, anyway.
Yeah, no, I'd agree. Obviously, the main substrate that we're going to be fueling our sessions with is carbohydrate, and if we can have a big influx of that, it tends to give us a good few training sessions that are productive, or at least a little bit less draggy than our previous
Yeah,
ones. I know for sure. I've experimented with mainly single day refeeds throughout this prep, and they've been pretty significantly high carbohydrate. And I know that the training session on that day and the training session the day after tend to be very, very, very good. Like
yeah, yeah,
walking in, I'll think, oh god, like I don't feel amazing, and then suddenly, like you'll just get this surge of energy, and weights that previously felt really, really tough actually start moving well. And it
yeah, yeah,
just proves how much, like, it's weird how much food intake, just like carbohydrate intake, just for one day or a brief moment in time, has a huge impact on how you feel and how you train. Which
yeah,
is
definitely.
obviously,
Yeah,
we could bang on about nutrition for ages, but it just shows that you don't, obviously in the past you've had to diet on essentially like rabbit food towards the
mm,
end, and that's not what we want to be on, because we
yeah,
want to maximize training performance, we want to maximize muscle retention, and that's obviously what you've had to do to take it to the pro level. Like at the end, you're not eating rabbit food, you're still eating food, and
yeah, yeah,
you're
exactly.
still fueling sessions, which is very much important. So awesome. Well, Damien, I think we've had a superb chat here. Obviously updating on where you're at now, and obviously telling, but probably what was only a small insight into your massive story, but nevertheless a very good one. And I hope that listeners have enjoyed this one. For sure, if you have, guys, any questions that you specifically wanted to ask Damien or myself, about either this podcast or anything that Damien's doing with regards to his prep, just chuck any questions on the YouTube comments. And also, if you watch this and you've enjoyed it, and you're like listening on mobile, or you're watching on your laptop, take a screenshot and tag us both in your Instagram stories, and let us know what you thought of the podcast, because it'd be great to get this one out there, because I think it's gonna be motivational, and have a huge impact on a lot of young bodybuilders coming up looking to potentially get to where Damien is at now. So yes, we will leave it there for today. Damien, have you got sort of anything else that you want to add? Feel free to sort of let people know where you are active on social media with regards to your Instagram, Facebook, or whatever. I'll make sure to leave links below, but just sort of let people know where you put out content, and generally where you're most active in terms of social media.
Sure, yeah. Well, on Facebook, I'm on as Damien Lees, and also my business is Damien Lees Tailored Fitness.
Okay.
So feel free to like the page and follow there. On Instagram, I'm a Coach Team Lees. So I tend to put on all sorts of articles there, useful information, as well as personal prep updates, as well as client prep updates as well. So you can follow me there. Yeah, that's pretty much my
Awesome.
social media
Cool.
channels. Yeah.
And if people are listening to this and sort of want help with like training and diet, like who do you generally help, and sort of who can you help? Like, do you help with posing? Do you help with bodybuilding prep? And how can people contact you if they're sort of interested in your services, Damien?
Of course, yeah. My website is www.damianleestaylorfitness.co.uk.
Cool.
I help general population clients, fat loss, mainly for men and women of all ages. Also do my other percentage of the business is from contest prep, where basically I help all categories, from bikini, men's physique, right up to all ages masters, weight classes, that sort of thing. I do posing tuition as well, and I'll hold local clubs once a month as well. So I do online prep and also face to face for people who come over. I've been doing that since I started the business in 2011, and then from sort of like 2014, I was seriously prepping people. So we've done well altogether. Out of 25 shows, we've got 20 class wins and 3 overalls, 3 best presentations. I did some stats the other week, you see, so I'm just looking at all the shows and my clients, how well we've done.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's good to look back on. A lot of runner-up places or top placings. But yeah, pretty good track record altogether. But I put all my passion into my prep myself, into my clients as well, so it feeds off to them hopefully as well.
Yeah. Okay. Cool. Amazing. No, that's yeah. No, every time I see you post about a client, I'm always commenting because I think you're doing a great, like, an awesome job. You're definitely a role model for me in terms of prep coaching and also just generally like bodybuilding and the way that you approach things. So you've been, yeah, like I said, a huge role model and inspiration for me, and I imagine that you are for a lot of other people, mate. So yeah,
Thanks very much.
if you guys are interested in Damien's services, or you want to sort of hire someone that's got an incredible track record for bodybuilding prep, etc., then make sure to check out his website. We will leave it there for now, guys. I hope you've enjoyed this slightly longer episode of the Natty scene. But I think any guests that are sort of newer to the podcast, or at least want to share a larger story, deserve definitely a longer episode. So you've probably expended more calories on your cardio session than usual, which is good because you'll be leaner. So yeah, guys, thanks very much for listening. Give this a like, subscribe for future episodes, and thanks again, Damien, for coming on. It's been awesome.
Brilliant. Thanks very much, AJ, and all the best for Sunday and the finals as well.
Cool. Cheers, guys.
Cheers.
Thanks very
Thank you.
much.
Bye
Bye.
now.